Hello fellow manga fans, today I'm going to be reviewing the first 7 chapters of the manga Maga-Tsuki. Now this one is written by Hoshino Taguchi. Now I'm not familiar with his work. I tried to Google him and really all I found was Maga-Tsuki, so maybe this is his first work, I don't know. It's been running for a couple of years in Japan. Currently it is available if you want to read it on Crunchyroll, which is what I'm doing because they now include the manga that they have with your membership for the anime. So it's a pretty good deal. I thought I'd take advantage of it, and I found this manga and I wanted to talk about it. Maga-Tsuki tells the story of Yasuke, who is your average teenage boy. Which pretty much means that this is going to have some ecchi, fan service, and is probably a harem. And sure enough, that's pretty much along the lines of what this is. So Yasuke, he lives with his sister at a Shinto shrine because she is a Shinto priestess, though she's probably a pretty progressive priestess given to how she's depicted in the manga. So one day Yasuke is doing work around the shrine and he accidentally breaks a mirror. Now what he doesn't know is that this mirror is actually the item that is a container for a goddess of misfortune who becomes eventually known as Orihime. Now Orihime, as soon as she is released, she places a curse on Yasuke. And what this curse essentially does is removes his soul, places it inside her, and now he has to stay within physical contact with her at all times or else he dies. And hilarity ensues. Actually, what kind of makes this a little bit interesting is it isn't just the fact that he has to stay in contact with this goddess who looks like she's about a 14-year-old girl. It's also the fact that Yasuke has this childhood friend named Akari who he is actually in love with. And of course there's now these elements of jealousy and everything else going on, and misconceptions and misconstrued ideas. It's kind of a sweet manga. Like, there's definitely sort of a romantic comedy element to it, and even though definitely there's some slightly ecchi elements to it, they're almost handled more like fan service type stuff. So naturally, because there's a boy who has to keep in contact with a girl, the manga will address how they bathe, how they get dressed. You know, how do they do this without going full frontal in front of each other? And it is actually kind of funny, the situation. I found the manga actually pretty entertaining. A few things that make it work. First of all, I really like the art style in this. Now, often what I've complained about in my other manga reviews is the lack of gradations between the whites and the blacks, and that sometimes it's just the two, white and black. This has some really nice gradation work. It gives it a lot of sort of detail, and of course because it is a harem type manga, that's a good thing because you want all of those shadows and shades and everything else to, let us say, emphasize the assets of the female characters. And the female characters, of course, have their own sort of personalities. Akari is just sort of an average girl, maybe a little bit quick to throw her fist, we find out. Orihime is very sort of shy, but we also find that it's, you know, she's been locked alone in this mirror for a long time. And the reason she's locked up is because, like I said, she's a goddess of misfortune. Well, guess what happens when she gets upset? Thunderstorms, lightning, even the odd meteorite crashing to Earth. So Yasuke is in this sort of tough spot where he has to try and keep Orihime happy because calamity happens if she's not. He also has to stay basically attached to her somehow or else he dies. But at the same time, he's got to try and do all this without ruining his relationship with Akari, who he actually wants to be closer with. So it's very much a situational type romantic comedy with all of that supernatural, harem, fan servicey, slightly ecchi stuff all thrown into the mix. But with all that said, there is sort of a certain sweetness and almost a touch of innocence, and I don't know if that's maybe because of Orihime's character herself, but the manga didn't really come across to me as being kind of lewd, which sometimes that's what you see in these sort of harem-y type things. There's a lot of very predictable elements to this, but for some reason I just can't help but keep reading, and I don't know what it is. I think it's mainly the characters, and it's not that they're earth-shattering characters at this point, but Yasuke still comes across as being more of an average male. He's not a complete out-there pervert, which you probably won't believe me if you read this, because in the first 2 pages he's hiding under stairs with his buddies looking up to see the panties of the girls walking by. But what's funny is when Akari comes, he won't let the boys look, and he won't look himself, which I think is kind of cool too. He averts his eyes as well. So there's a level of decency about him, and he's not always constantly obsessing about boobs or panties and that kind of stuff. So it makes him a bit more of a relatable teenage male. I mean, there's always going to be an element of perviness to a teenage male. Sorry, it's true. And like I said, Orihime has this very sweet innocence to her. Akari has this very girl next door, which is funny because she is literally next door to the Shinto shrine. That's how they're friends. She has this very relatable girl next door sort of vibe to her. So while the characters are almost immediately recognizable as your basic archetypes in this type of a manga, they are still appealing. I still felt invested in their feelings and wanting to see what would happen. Because what was kind of nice about this one is that even though it's obviously building a harem, I mean, yeah, it's building a harem, there's no doubt in my mind. But even though it has that, it's not like girls just fall in love with Yasuke like that. We actually, even in just these first 7 chapters, start to see even Akari herself kind of coming around to this idea that, oh, maybe I do think of him as something more than just a friend. And it's the same thing with Orihime, because she doesn't really see him in a romantic way. Like I said, there's a lot of innocence to her, but when he's around Akari and stuff, you can see that she's starting to question why she feels a certain way or has a certain physical reaction to it. And of course we, the all-knowing audience, realize it's a bit of jealousy because she's starting to like him, but there's a bit of, but like I said, it has a bit of a sweetness to it, so that it's not just, oh, boom, they see him, they fall in love, or, you know, it's dealt with in sort of half of a chapter, and because he's nice to her, she's automatically in love with him. It doesn't happen that way. And so I'm very interested in seeing how these relationships progress. I don't know, like I said, I only read the first 7 chapters. There's over 40 chapters in this manga. It's been going on for a while. I believe Crunchyroll, it's still going on, and I believe this is one that Crunchyroll puts out the chapter as soon as it's been released in Japan. So as far as I know, they should be current, and I believe they're up to chapter 45. I'd have to double check, but for the purpose of this video, I know it's low to mid 40s. So those are my initial thoughts on this first several chapters of Maga-Tsuki. Now, it's about a volume that I read. It was about 7 chapters. It might be a chapter or 2 more than the first volume, but so I haven't really gotten that deep into the story, but definitely I will be reading the rest of this one. Like I said, it's kind of light and cute and just fun, and, you know, nice sort of escapist type entertainment, which, you know, they can't all be mind-bending, world-shattering type stories, right? So thanks very much for watching this video. If you liked it, if you'd like to see more manga reviews from me, click the like button down below, subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you in my next video. Thanks very much for watching again, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.